New York is tearing itself apart to survive. Right now, towers climbing past 1,000 feet, tunnels boring under the Hudson, train stations ripped apart and rebuilt, and most people walking past construction sites, they have no idea what's actually at stake. This isn't about one building. It's about whether New York can survive what it's become. 4 projects, billions of dollars, millions of lives. If even one fails, the damage spreads fast. Some are behind schedule, others have stopped completely, and one is already underground, moving millions, with no backup plan if it breaks. The question isn't what's being built, it's what breaks when it doesn't work. We start above ground, with a tower that shouldn't exist. The tower wasn't supposed to look like this. Rising beside Grand Central Terminal, One Vanderbilt doesn't just stand tall, it dominates. At over 1,400 feet, it forces itself into Manhattan's skyline, dwarfing the buildings around one of the busiest transit hubs on Earth. This isn't just another skyscraper chasing height records. It was built because the city was choking. Grand Central was designed for a slower century. Today, hundreds of thousands pour through it every day. Commuters, tourists, entire economies moving on tight schedules. So New York made a deal. In exchange for building higher than zoning laws would ever allow, the developers of One Vanderbilt agreed to rebuild the city beneath their tower. New tunnels, rebuilt platforms, direct links into the subway and rail network, a private skyscraper wired directly into public infrastructure. On paper, it sounds brilliant. In reality, it's a gamble, because now, a massive portion of Midtown's daily movement is physically dependent on a single private building. Above ground, One Vanderbilt sells spectacle, glass elevators racing upward, observation decks that tilt you out over the city, views designed to go viral. But below ground is where the real risk lives. If something fails there, structural, mechanical, or operational, the chaos doesn't stop at the lobby. It floods into Grand Central, into subway lines, into the daily movement of the city itself. And that's the pattern New York is leaning into. Solve public problems by attaching them to private megastructures. Build higher, build faster, integrate deeper. The question is whether this tower represents the future, or the moment the city tied its survival to buildings that can't afford to fail. Because the next project doesn't rise into the sky. It disappears underground and carries far more people than this tower ever will. Because the next project doesn't rise into the sky. It disappears underground and carries far more people than this tower ever will. Beneath Manhattan, the city narrows to a choke point. Hundreds of thousands of commuters funneled through tunnels built over 110 years ago. Trains packed beyond comfort. Platforms jammed shoulder to shoulder. Delays that ripple from minutes into hours. For most people, this feels normal. Crowded cars, missed connections. Signal problems. The city's polite way of saying the system is breaking in real time. But here's the part no one mentions. Nearly every train moving between New Jersey and New York depends on just 2 aging tunnels beneath the Hudson River. 2 tunnels, damaged by saltwater flooding, pushed past their limits, no real backup. When something goes wrong here, it doesn't just slow a commute. It severs the connection between 2 economic engines. Offices can't staff up, businesses stall. Entire industries feel it before the day is over. The city knows this. They're building new tunnels, repairing the old ones, pouring $16 to $17 billion into fixing the bottleneck while the system stays live. But construction won't finish until 2035. That's a decade away. And the old tunnels? They're already failing. So the question isn't whether New York can build its way out. It's whether the system can hold long enough for the replacement to arrive. Because if this bottleneck fails before it's replaced, New York doesn't just get crowded, it stops. But infrastructure doesn't make headlines. Stadiums do. While New York races to fix what keeps the city alive, it's also pouring hundreds of millions into something far less essential, but far more visible: a soccer stadium. For decades, New York City Football Club played as a tenant, borrowed fields, no permanent home. So the city approved a bold solution: a 25,000-seat, soccer-specific stadium in Queens, built on public land, scheduled to open in 2027. But this project isn't about sport. It's about identity. Cities build stadiums when they want to announce something: confidence, relevance, ambition. They're monuments to who a city thinks it is or wants to become, and they're expensive bets. Because unlike tunnels or power systems, stadiums don't keep a city running. They don't fix bottlenecks. They don't prevent collapse. They compete for money, space, and political attention with projects that do. The pitch sounds strong: jobs, community investment, international attention, a signal that New York belongs on the world football stage. But history isn't kind to cities that get this balance wrong. When attendance dips, when teams underperform, when projected economic booms don't arrive, stadiums don't quietly fade. They linger, expensive, immovable reminders of bets that didn't pay off. New York is betting this one will be different. That global football culture, a growing fan base, and private partnerships will justify the cost. But the timing reveals the real tension. While the city fights to keep trains running and tunnels from failing, it's also choosing to invest in spectacle, not survival. It says New York still believes in symbols, even when the ground beneath them is cracking. Because the final project doesn't ask what New York wants to be. It asks what happens when the systems holding the city together are pushed past their limit, all at once. This is bigger than every project before it. You don't see it. You don't photograph it. You don't line up outside it. But without it, nothing else works. New York runs on power, and the city is running out of it. Every elevator ride, every subway signal, every data center, hospital, office tower, and apartment depends on a grid that's already stretched thin. Demand keeps climbing, infrastructure isn't keeping up. So the city made another bet: a multi-billion-dollar power corridor designed to carry electricity hundreds of miles into New York, buried underground, hidden beneath rivers, streets, and neighborhoods. A project measured not in buildings, but in megawatts. On paper, it sounds clean: reliable energy, fewer emissions, a stronger grid. But this system is invisible by design, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because when power systems fail, they don't fail politely. There are no delays, no workarounds, no slowdowns. Lights go out, trains stop, signals fail, hospitals switch to generators, entire neighborhoods go dark. And the terrifying part isn't a total blackout. It's cascading failure. One overload trips another. Backup systems strain. Recovery takes hours or days. New York has seen this before. And now the city is more digital, more electrified, more dependent than ever. AI infrastructure, data centers, electrified transport, towers that can't afford a single outage. This project isn't about growth, it's about preventing collapse. Because if the grid can't expand fast enough, or if this system fails under pressure, every project you've seen before becomes irrelevant. The towers don't matter. The tunnels don't matter. The stadium doesn't matter. A modern city without power isn't a city. It's a blackout with a skyline. And that's the real risk New York is racing against. Not whether it can build bigger, but whether the systems you never notice can survive the load of the city that depends on them. Seen on their own, these projects look unrelated. A tower, a tunnel, a stadium, a power corridor, different purposes, different budgets, different headlines, but together they tell one story. New York isn't just building up or down or outward. It's re-engineering itself under pressure. One project ties public movement to private buildings. Another keeps the city alive through infrastructure already past its limits. Another spends political capital on symbols and identity, and the last one quietly decides whether any of it works at all. These aren't four separate bets. They're dependencies. The tower only works if trains run. The trains only run if tunnels hold. The tunnels only matter if the grid stays alive. And the grid has to carry a city that keeps getting denser, faster, and more demanding. That's the risk cities like New York now face. Not collapse in a single moment, but cascading failure. When one system breaks, the rest follow. This is what modern cities look like when they reach the edge of scale. When growth outpaces margin. When every upgrade becomes a race against time. New York is betting that it can keep building its way forward, that it can upgrade while operating, expand while surviving, because stopping isn't an option. And if this city, with all its money, expertise, and ambition, struggles to hold itself together, then the question isn't what happens to New York. It's what happens to every city trying to follow it. You won't notice the moment a city breaks. You'll just wake up inside it,